Welcome ladies, welcome gentlemen. Cemeteries, those places. That when we go in some way, these places infect us with a different peace. Sometimes, of course, we can come to the point of feeling melancholy sadness, but it is still different as soon as you cross the doors. But within these mixed feelings we have stories today that were lost to us by people who saw each other face to face, sense to sense with things that we cannot understand, yet that which comes to take away our sleep, that which still haunts the cemeteries. So let us take advantage then that we are here, and let me accompany you during any activity that you are doing, or make yourselves comfortable. We are going to disconnect for a while from the stress and the rush of the outside world, and better prepare and accompany us with the drink of your preference, and let us go to Coahuila de Zaragoza. Martin Garcia tells us this. Good evening to the audience from this channel. Today, listening to the compilation of towns and cemeteries made me relive, when listening to each story, something that happened to me when I was little. This was quite a few years ago. I am currently 55, so do the math. Things have changed a lot in that direction. Precisely in a town leaving the Saltillo to Matamoros Highway, there you enter, and you have San Francisco del Progreso, where I spent all my childhood. There lived my parents, my younger sister, who at that time I was 11 years old, and she was 8, my uncles 1 street away, and my 2 cousins, they were my age. So being a really small place, it still is, we did not have much to do, and so one of those afternoons that we went out to play, as always there in that town, it was very rare that any other car passed by that was not a neighbor. For this reason, our parents did not rush us so much that we went to cross the streets without care, and that something bad could happen. And because of this freedom, one example is that one afternoon my cousins told me that they had seen a cemetery with my uncles, but it was very far away, but too far, at least for our age. I think that if we walked for about 30 or 40 minutes in pure Monte Seco, we did not want to go along the avenue, because this was already very forbidden to us. It was a highway there. They did pass quickly. This was a cemetery in that year, also very small, located in the middle of nowhere, and for that reason we were able to enter. It barely had a wall, and in that year it did not even have a gate where it is supposed to be. We still had sunlight. It was already getting dark, and when we were there walking, suddenly the 3 of us were spoken to by another child. We all turned around and saw a child dressed completely in white. He was wearing a very white shirt, white pants, also white shoes, and he seemed to be our age. We turned around when he spoke to us, because we heard how each one of us said our names and him. We had him maybe about 10 m away on the last tombstones. One of my cousins said that maybe it was one of the children from over there, from our house, some neighbor, but we did not know him. However, we did not understand why he knew our names, and I told them to go with him. Maybe he did not know often, and it helps that we returned all together. So my cousins greeted him from afar, and that child did not say anything, but only made us the sign to turn to the floor. This sign he made towards a part that we could not see because it was at his height. So we walked towards him, and when we were going to get there, he goes into that hallway. But as he was a little smaller, apparently at least in height, than us, he got lost among the graves, and we were looking for him. When I screamed to my cousins, they came to ask me what happened, and I pointed out a small grave. In that place that I showed them, there was a small tombstone with a hole, as if it had just been dug, and there was what seemed to be the place where a small coffin should go, but there was nothing. It was completely empty, and what made me yell at them was a photograph. In that photo is that child. It was old, but you could see it very well, and when we saw that, we ran out of back to the house completely scared. The 3 of us, we confirmed that it was him, and we did not see him again in the cemetery. That was too small to lose him. There was no one on top. Else, when we got to the house, our parents did not even realize where we were. They trusted us, and until the years passed when we left there, I told my parents that as a child he disobeyed them, and that had happened to us. That for which my father, when I told him this when I was older, he still scolded me very seriously, because he told me that there was a time For in those areas, residents of nearby towns had been being on the lookout because bodies had been stolen from 2 nearby cemeteries. They abandoned one completely when this started to happen because someone was taking them away, and the families chose to take their loved ones out of there and take them to another because that bone had dirt on it. This was not something typical of him, and when we were talking about it, telling him that it was not right for him to bring it, he told us that a lady in the cemetery was the one who told him to take it because he saw the ring in one of the graves behind the urns, and that the lady told him to take it because anyway it was no one's anymore. That's why he took the ring that came with the finger attached. We never saw him talking to any lady. We couldn't say it was a ghost, maybe, because yes, we saw several people that morning, as I told you, and this could have been in a small oversight where we lost sight of him. It could have been some malicious person. I go more in that direction. However, I could not deny that it was something else because minutes ago my husband and I had seen a man in the house, a man we did not know so until the day of today. We have that question, was it real, the woman that my son saw, because he said she was a lady like his grandmother of a certain age but evil in her words. So we explained to him that that was wrong, and my husband took that bone and the ring, placed it outside the house, and told me that the next day he would return it to the cemetery at his work, that it seemed rude to him to throw it in the trash and keep the ring because his mother always made it clear to him that he should not take anything from the cemeteries, and even if he did not think about it. We had at home the clear proof that if they follow you, if you take something from a dead person, it follows you to your house. The bone and the ring spent the night in front of the house outside, and that was the solution. That even so, any noise kept me alert that it was that man again, but no, we did not see or hear him again. And when my husband left the next day again, that in the cemetery that placed it near the urns, nothing bad has happened to us again. We have heard stories of people who steal belongings in the cemeteries, and after this, terrifying things happen. Reminders of the beyond that are constantly saying, this does not belong to you, and you know it. And there are some calm experiences and others not so much. Have you ever taken something from a cemetery with or without intention? And talking about this subject, you already follow me on Instagram. You find me as @AlanSalas, where in these next few days I will be, and also on the Instagram channel Mausoleo de los Horrors, so you can find it too, and in any case you will have the links in the first comment. Thank you very much in advance. Now let's go with Fatima Soria to the United States, and what she tells us is the following. I continue working there. I already asked, and there is no problem with sharing this since it has nothing to do directly with us, and although many years have passed since this, what we were asked was not to mention the Pantheon. Exactly, I have been living in the United States for years, near New Orleans, and my job consists of going to supervise different types of properties, especially those that require maintenance work from time to time on refrigeration systems, all that, and one of the clients of this company was in a cemetery. This place is somewhat simple. It has a medium extension. What happens is that even when this happened to me in 2010, it still looked much older. This neglected cemetery, I think that was it, and you will see the story was told to us by the man who worked there. And the second to last time we visited that cemetery, since they changed maintenance service for other issues that no longer have to do with us, was that a colleague and I visited it. We did what we did that day, the inspections, and the man, a person of perhaps about 60 years old who always worked there, took us to the back of the cemetery to see the pipes, and there, my colleague and I saw something very peculiar in the walls, something that we had not paid attention to before. Hey sir, if it is not indiscreet, why are the walls like that? I asked, and this man turned to look at the walls that were all stained It was there that we realized that they were. So that apart they had spikes, pointing up and inwards, inclined downwards, go. Inside the cemetery was very strange what this man told us. I am not assuring you that it is true or not. I am telling you what he told us. What I saw you saw. He began to tell us. Telling us before that if we did not believe nothing would happen, that he understood that many years had passed and that it is something that was not heard frequently, but he did see things. Years ago he told us that when that area began to have more people, for that very reason I do not comment exactly where it was, so that it would not be filled with prejudices that this could happen. It was because people from other countries began to arrive, which is not bad at all, but the cemeteries could not take more, and this was a long time ago, so they began to build more for the people who had to bury their loved ones, and that cemetery was one of those. However, there was a time when, unfortunately, there were people looting graves at night, taking belongings, and not only that, but the next day when they opened, they found new graves made, go on, the night, with people who were not there before. For that reason, and because of the state in which these people were found, they realized that there they were burying people who had had their lives taken from them in a horrible way. They went at night to leave them there, and who was going to notice? And this began to be very frequent, but of course the Lord told us that he did have to be there several times when some people were digging graves. But what could he do? These people came armed separately. There were several, and this was something that did not happen before, but those people that he saw were not necessarily from other countries. He had to be from all kinds of people, as if between all of them they had realized that in that cemetery they could be doing these things. It was there that the Lord told us a phrase that I initially thought he was joking with. We had to raise the walls even more and put those spikes on them, the ones on top for those who want to enter, and the ones inside so that those who are already there do not want to leave. Listening to this, it became obvious to us that with the second one he meant that if there were already people inside they would have problems getting out, until my companion jokingly, as if to break that tension of what he was telling us, this man, or I don't know, asked him if so that the dead people wouldn't get out, and the Lord just told us exactly that's what they're for. When we saw that the man didn't laugh, I asked him if he was serious, and he said yes. He continued telling us that this was getting even worse, that they not only had problems with this and that, in the end the police always had to come to take people away. They left there that he had to bury those who had sadly been robbed, that even sometimes they also had to be investigated to see if he could find the people who had done that. The whole matter became complicated, and it began to add up that now when dawn this man began to find remains of witchcraft work, but many this increased considerably, and despite the fact that they put surveillance, that the police went. This place is somewhat far from the city. We are on the outskirts. However, there are several houses that are just a few meters from the walls of the Pantheon, and it was the neighbors together with this man who one night heard and reported to the police when they arrived that same night that there was a man screaming desperately inside the Pantheon. That the police entered. This man arrived a few neighbors later to confirm it, and they found a man totally in a state of panic. They found him all full of earth. He had shovels, a weapon. They did not hear that the act, but they knew it was him because he later confessed, and even if he hadn't done it, the body that he left that night, there was all the evidence. This man that they found there that was arrested, and it was him that they had heard screaming, said that yes, he had gone to leave the body, that they found that of a person who had a shot in the forehead, and that according to him, he had gotten up when he was just burying him, that he got up and that he had chased him for a few meters until he fell. He began to scream, and they found him. They weren't sure if to believe him or not. However, he had confessed. He didn't care that he found him, and the Lord told us that that explained why They had found that body far from the well that person had finished for him, but they thought more than anything that he hadn't carried it there yet. But this man told us that he began to believe that it could be true what had happened to this person, because when they finished placing the spikes, they climbed the wall a few more meters, and now they had nowhere to enter. They no longer found anything new. They no longer left any new people there. But what began to happen to them, and the man said that he spoke in plural because the neighbors also saw people walking in the cemetery, but slowly in the nights from one side to another dawn. The man made the rounds before leaving. When he arrived to his relief, and they found people outside their graves who had been buried in the common grave that they had there, with the bags completely broken, since this cemetery was not like those in the United States, as most are usually seen. I tell you, this was a very neglected one, and they saw their earth pieces of bag all moved. It was not like before they found new people, that things were missing that left witchcraft. No, now it only seemed that someone took the bodies out of the graves and left them there, but they still had their rings, necklaces, shoes, everything, and they began to notice, both the man and the neighbors, since they were very united there, that the walls began to have dirt stains, hand marks. The Lord told us that no one wanted to believe what a neighbor said at first, that he, from what he saw in his window that easily gave a view of the cemetery, because his house was 2 stories high, that those he saw walking in the Pantheon, he saw that they were walking aimlessly, that then they lay down on the floor, and although he could not see well who they were, because it was completely dark, he dared to say that they were the dead who got up to walk. The man told us that afternoon, when a few neighbors were gathered with him in the cemetery, seeing those marks, they remained silent when they heard this, until a neighbor told him that she had thought the same thing. Because of all the witchcraft, they began to leave there, that on many occasions they had gone with the Lord to help him clean, that they made sure that there was not even a remnant, that no one touched anything, and that, in his words, that was witchcraft from the Caribbean. That was why they got up, but they could not affirm something like that. However, why did those people wake up outside their tomb? Who took it out, and why were those marks on the walls? That as the days and weeks went by, even though this man went out to check the Pantheon, he still had the fear of not going out at a bad time and running into bad people. Although at that point he no longer could enter, he could never see anything. Even so, the marks on the walls of hands, of shoes with dirt, became more and more, and each time they went up a little more. For this reason, they decided to order to install those spikes. They were not sure, but anyway, if in the end they were people who wanted to go back up to get out, they had it more complicated because of the position of those new spikes. And if not, well, let's see what happened. But something wanted to get out of the cemetery at nights. The gentleman told us that they never found anything trapped in those spikes, but that wall was getting more and more stained, and they did not stop finding from time to time one or another person outside of their graves, especially those of the mass graves. But that with time, this stopped happening. They no longer found people in any situation of the ones I already told you, nor did they see people walking through the windows. This, said the gentleman, stopped happening, but they never removed those stains. They left them as part from the history of the cemetery, a reminder for them that evil exists in many forms, based on a story that has been around for some time, the story of Mr. Gabriel. If you haven't heard it, it's a fascinating story. I'll leave it in the first comment. As a result of this, more people have dared to tell us about their experiences that have to do with this type of topic, which of course at first glance is difficult with what we know today, our rhythm in the city, day to day, the things we see, believing that all this happens. That's the difficult thing. However, they happen for some reason, they are told. That's why people are encouraged to trust this space to tell us this, which is incredible, but it happens. Thank you very much for your trust. And tell us if you have had any paranormal experiences in cemeteries. It would be a pleasure to know your story. Don't forget to visit Mysteries of the Bonfire, our second channel, which we assure you, we have cases and visits. Very interesting places. The link of Anyway, you will have it in the first comment and the social networks of this channel. Follow us there that we offer you content also by those means, or if you have any story to tell us, please write to us through any means that we provide you in the description or in the pinned comment. It is always a pleasure, and without more to add, I send you a very strong hug. See you in the next video, and the last to leave, please turn off the lights and close the doors of the mausoleum. Good night and